Let's go JavaScripting! Hi everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Boring JavaScript. I'm your host, the Virtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and today we're taking a look at the Array.flat and flatMap methods. Both of them basically do one thing, and that is to take an array and flatten it or concatenate a multi-dimensional array into a single dimensional array. And the flat will just simply do the array, while the flatMap will combine both a map and a flat command all at the same time and a little bit more efficiently. You want to see how they work? Let's get started. Okay, let's take a look at the flat method first. Now I've got just a very simple little array here, and it's got 4 elements in the array, so I should expect my number of my animals in my zoo to equal to 4. So let's flip over to node and let's type in node flat. And ooh, look at that. Number of animals in my zoo is 3. No, it's not. I've got Fluffy, I got Fido, I got Rolf, and I got Mr. Ed. Where's the problem? Well, notice, let's go back to the code and I'll show you what the problem is. Here is an entry in my animals array. Here's another entry in my animals array, but here's another entry in my animals array. I basically have an array within an array. So I really can't count how many animals I may have in this particular array here because I only have 3 entries. But I have 4 animals because visually I can see it. How do I fix this? Well, one of the ways to fix it is to use the flat method. Let's take a look at that code. Okay, so here's the code. So basically this is the flat method. And it takes 1 argument, which I'll show you here in just a second. But basically what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, I've got this array called my animals, and I'm going to take a look at it, and if there is a subarray that is 1 level deep past the initial level, which the initial level obviously is this home level here, I'm going to take all of the elements of that second level and I'm going to merge it into the first level. So my first level here is Fluffy, this construct, and then Mr. Ed. Once I do the flat command, which is going to create a whole new array and pass that array into, make that array into a new array, so it won't change the old array, it'll just create yourself a new array. It's going to find out that the second entry here is an array on its own, so it's going to take each element out of this array, in this case Fido and Ralph, and merge it into the first array. So what I should end up with once I run this program here, after the flat has occurred, all animals should end up with Fluffy, then Fido, then Rolf, then Mr. Ed. 4 entries into the array, but no sub-entry because it will have merged that second entry into the first one. You want to see how that works? Let's flip over to node. Let's clear off our screen. Let's go to node flat. And sure enough, now the number of animals in my flattened zoo is 4, which is correct. But notice what's done here. There is my first entry, Fluffy the cat, which corresponds to my first entry up here. Here is my second entry, Fido, which now there's my second, there's the old Fido entry. Here is my third entry, Rolf. There it is right there. And here is my 4th entry, Mr. Ed, which is right here. So as you can tell here, it is concatenated everything into the top array. So earlier I said that there was an argument that you could pass to the flat method. And let's now take a look at that. Let's throw some code up here. Okay, I now have some new code, and actually all I really did was just change my animals. So now I have this entry right here and this entry right here, but notice now I have a subarray or 2 subarrays within a subarray. So I've now got it triple level. So let's run it and see what happens when I do a triple level. Let's go over to node and let's type in node flat. Now, notice when I did a triple level here, we didn't fully get a flatten. It still says, yeah, I still got 4 animals, but notice my first animal is Fluffy, my second animal is the array, my third animal is the array, and my 4th animal is Mr. Ed. So it didn't quite work out the way we had anticipated. How do we fix that? Well, the argument that you could pass to flat is the number of levels deep to go. So I happen to have 2 levels deep, so if I put a 2 now inside my flat as the argument, this will tell me the depth of how deeply within the subarrays I need to go. This subarray right here is 2 subarrays in. It's not at the very top of it's not it's not at the very top here like the original one was, but it's now another level deep. So by default it does 1 level deep. Now I'm telling it to do 2 level deeps. 2 level deeps, excuse me, 2 level deep. So when I just put the 2 there and I flip over to node, let's clear off the screen. Let's go to node flat. Aha, now I've got 6 animals in there, because now notice what it did is it went 2 levels deep and just moved everything upwards by 2 levels. So that's one of the wonderful things about flat, is that you can take a multi-dimensional array and you can flatten out the values into a single dimensional array if need be, and work with it like that. Next, let's take a look at the flat map. Okay, so let's take a look at the flat map. Now the flat map method basically does 2 different things. It does both a map on your array and it does a flat. So basically you can think of it this way. If you were to do this manually, you would first call a map, an Array.map method, and I covered the map method in another Boring JavaScript, and it will do whatever it needs to do to create a new array for you, and then it would flatten that particular array. So let's just take a quick look at what's going to happen here. I've got the same array that I had before, with my first Fluffy, my last Mr. Ed, and my Fido and Rolf in the middle there. And what the flat map is going to do is that you actually give it a callback function. And this callback function is operated on each and every single one of the array entries as if you were calling a map. So, for instance, like I said before, you would call first a map and then a flat to get your flat map method. So this callback is what you would use if you were to use the map function on your array. So in my particular case here, each one of these is an array coming in. So I'm going to do a for each on each array, and I'm going to actually modify each animal within the array by putting a critter count. Starting my critter count at 0, and I'm going to start incrementing the critter count each and every single time. Then I'm going to return the animals. So what will happen here is that the flat map will first go through my entire array and say, okay, I'm going to add critter count here, then I'm going to add critter count to both of these, and then I'm going to add critter count to this one. And it's going to return this exact same array here, but with critter count as a third property. Then what will happen is it will run the flat, and it should flatten everything like it had before. So if we go over to node and take a quick look at that, let's type in node flat map. Yep, sure enough, that's what happened. Here's my flattened zoo 4, and it flattened it just like it did before, but notice I now have critter count as a new property on each particular animal. So flat map is a wonderful way to be able to modify or do any kind of operations on each and every single one of the elements of your array before it gets flattened. But there is a limitation. Let me show you that next. So what I've done here is I've put my more complex array in here where I have a subarray within the subarray. And I'm basically going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to do critter count. I'm going to go through each of the animals, and it's going to go through and do all the animals. So if we flip over to node, and let's clear the screen off here. Let's go to node flat map. I don't have 6 animals in the zoo. I only have 4 animals in the zoo. There's my critter count 1 there. Look, the critter count was added to the array and not to each one of the different animals. Why is that? Well, that's because I've got an array within the array. Okay, cool. So with the flat, we had to specify a depth, right? Yeah, but you can't with flat map, because flat map will not go past a depth of 1. There's no way you can specify a depth of 2 or a depth of 3. It is always going to be a depth of 1. So if you happen to have that particular situation, you're going to pretty much have to write your own map routine to be able to do whatever you have to do with all the sub elements, and then do the flat with the different depth to it. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Flat map is wonderful for being able to manipulate each one of the elements, but they will only do a flat to a depth of 1. And that's all there is to the flat and flat map methods on arrays. I hope you enjoyed our video. Hope I didn't bore you to death. Please make sure you click on the like button below, or click on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. You can also see all of our videos at www.boringjavascript.com, or see everything we do at www.thevirtualvoid.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.